Okay, beautiful. It is up, and I see the clock is running. So here we go. We'll start. I'll fix my hair.
Okay.
All right. Joe Illidge, welcome to Word Balloon. Long time coming, man.
Seriously, thank you for having me. I'm glad I lasted long enough in comics to make it. So we're here. We're ready.
Well, and thankfully, heavy metal and even a couple of your previous stops were a lot more good about letting me talk to editors because, much like yourself in your DC years, Will Dennis, Shelley Bond, Karen Berger, it was impossible to get any sort of interview going with them because they just had a strict policy of no editor.
Yeah. Dude, it's nuts. But hey, listen, now's the time.
Absolutely. And even beyond this conversation, we've already discussed it backstage. I look forward to us talking in the future about even more. But there's a lot to unpack about current projects. And as we're recording this, I just got off the line with Christopher Priest. You're editing Entropy. And how much are you doing now at Heavy Metal? Are you beyond this comic? How many other comics are you presiding over as an editor?
Wow. So as the executive editor of Heavy Metal, I deal with all of, primary publishing. So that's the magazine, right? And the thing about the magazine is it's like 10 comic books because it's an anthology, right? So you know the deal. You've spoken to people. Every story is like its own comic book. So there's the magazine, there's Entropy, and then there's series we have in development that we haven't announced yet, right? So I could tell you that I am working on at least 2 other comic book series, and we're working on Heavy Metal magazine content that won't see publication until Q1 of 2023.
Understood. I don't know if you already knew this. A couple of years ago, I had the pleasure and opportunity to talk to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, man.
And he's a big Uber nerd, if you don't already know.
I know.
Okay, and I don't know if you've met him at San Diego, but when he was promoting his Mycroft Holmes novel and then subsequently his graphic novel, I got the chance to interview him. And he told me right off the bat, he's like, Heavy Metal magazine was in my locker room when I was playing for the Lakers, and all the other players made fun of me. But he goes, I didn't care, and and that's why I was like, oh, I got to talk to Kareem because he says he's a comic book fan from day one when he was a little kid, and he proved it in that interview, man. But it was so great to hear that beyond the obvious that he's like, oh, Heavy Metal, man, it's incredible. So
yeah, it's so crazy how this magazine is a touch point in so many lives. For me, what happened was I discovered Heavy Metal at the age of 13. I went to the High School of Art and Design in Manhattan, and I went to School of Visual Arts because I was one of those kids who grew up and dreamed of being John Bernard George Perez. Right?
Here.
So, I grew up on a steady diet of superheroes, Marvel, DC, maybe occasionally like a Charlton Comics or something. And then at the age of 13, like someone like a classmate showed me this magazine. The first thing I see is Ranks of Rocks by Liberatore. And I'm like, what the hell is this? I've never seen anything like this before. I want to know more, but I know I can't take this home because if my mother ever found it, she'd kick me out the house.
Absolutely, man. Yeah.
So it's like I discovered it at 13, but I wouldn't really get to engage Heavy Metal until I was 18 and I was in college. And when I went to School of Visual Arts, you're talking 1988, yeah?
Okay.
That was the first library. The SVA library was the first library that had graphic novels, to my experience.
Certainly.
So that's where I reconnected with and finally read all of Watchmen in one volume, read all of Frank Miller's Ronin, right? And so I would go to the Forbidden Planet, which at that time was on the corner of 12th and Broadway. And that's how I reconnected with Heavy Metal magazine. But yeah, it's this touch point, and there's before Heavy Metal and after Heavy Metal. Your understanding of comics is right there. That's the dividing line, yeah?
I'm with you, man. No, and you're right. And I mean, here I'll say the crass thing, and yeah, a lot of nudity, robot boobs, robot boobs on the cover, man. Come on,
please.
Priest and I were talking about that. It's like, can't let your mom know you're reading stuff like this. Absolutely, man.
Listen, even before I discovered the magazine, you know, I had discovered the film, right? Because the animated film came out in 81, I believe. No, 82, because this is the 45th anniversary year.
Yes, of course.
And when I discovered the magazine, I think it was 1984. So I, you know, came across like Tarna and Captain Stern and the One-Way Ticket to Midnight like 2 years before I even got to the magazine, you know?
Dude, I saw that movie when I was in high school. I'm a couple years older than you. And that, as I was saying to Priest earlier, it is so great that Entropy continues to expand on the Tarna universe. And it is such a great character. And when Heavy Metal decided to do monthly comics alongside the magazine, it's like, well, you've already got great characters like Tarna to exploit. And as I just said, expand it further.
Dude, listen, get out of my head, because the way I came into Heavy Metal was, so, you know, like my second stop in comics was DC Comics after Milestone. I was at DC from 98 to 2000, you know, during Batman No Man's Land and the Y2K relaunch of the entire Batman line. And one of my colleagues there was David Irwin, and David Irwin basically like built the DC superhero franchise department. And so years later, like a few years ago, we reconnected through social media. We stayed in touch, and you know, he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something." I was like, "Okay, what are we talking about?" He's like, "I'm the new publisher of Heavy Metal." I said, "Get the hell out of here." He's like, "No, for real, and I want to bring you aboard." And I'm like, "Get the hell out of here."
That's so great.
He's like, "Yeah, I'd love to introduce you to the CEO." And I'm like, "Okay." So then, you know, he arranges a call. Have a phone conversation with the CEO, Matt Medney. In 5 minutes, we're like hugging buddies because we start bonding over the Expanse, right?
That's great. Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Like
that was the introduction to our conversation. So as far as I was concerned, I was like, we like the Expanse. Like, I'm already working here. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I said, listen, before I come on board, I said, I got two questions. And one of the questions was, tell me you're gonna do something with Tarna, because I don't understand how, as a company, you've had this character for like 4 decades, and with very few exceptions, you've basically kept her in a box. I said, that's insane to me. Like, Tarna is the tip of your spear as a company. Please tell me we're gonna be able to do something with Tarna. And he was like, oh yeah, you come in, like, we're gonna relaunch. I was like, okay. I was like, let's go. So that was really like, you know, after I kind of got my feet wet a little, you know, and you know, you go through the whole like you know, go through the honeymoon phase, right? Just to make sure, like, oh, okay, they like you like them, and all that stuff. And then it was the first thing on deck was the Tarna relaunch. You know what I mean? And that would open the door that would lead to Entropy. And at that time, there was no Entropy. So this is something that we're slowly building, which is part of the excitement, because if we are doing it at a slow pace, then for the reader, it's different. You know, some companies like, oh, they've got this stuff like 3 years in advance, or like if you're a certain publisher and you have a cinematic universe, there's probably already a map of what you're coming out with for the next 3 years. For us, it's shorter, and that allows us to be more spontaneous and more nimble as a publisher, right?
It's great to hear, man. All right, and now before we get further into Entropy, the fact that you mentioned the Heavy Metal movie and of course Tarna, but are there plans? And it's so sad that Richard Corbin isn't with us anymore.
Jeez.
Are there plans for Den? Are there plans for Lincoln Stern? I mean, Stern. I mean, you know, whatever.
Dude, there's so much demand, you know, for those characters, Harry, Canyon, and all that stuff. And you know, and the reality is, with all those specific visions, there are rights, there are conversations to have with the family estates. But believe you me, like, they're on our minds, because
that's wonderful.
You can't not be thinking about that, right?
Those movies have been playing, or that well, and I would even include a Heavy Metal 2000, but really the first one, you know, that's like a midnight movie theater cult movie. And I'm
That's
so
a
glad
fact.
when it does pop up on Turner Classic Movies and the like, because again, it is amazing. And I've only had the opportunity to talk to a handful of people that have been involved with it, like Chaikin and people like that in the past. So I'm really glad.
Yeah. Listen, and you know what they were doing, that was state of the art animation, just like the approach to rotoscoping and things like that. That Tarna sequence, that whole Tarna section, like that was some groundbreaking animation above and beyond the maturity of the content, just like the nature of animation. And so yeah, like that. And I think a few months ago they re-released a DVD, like Blu-ray, 4K, so you know a new audience is discovering it. So it's kind of like this time capsule. But one of the things that we wanted to do in this, you know, what we'll call this new administration of heavy metal, with Matthew Medney as the CEO, David Irwin as the publisher, and myself as the executive editor, is say, okay, there's Tarna. We've got to bring her into the 21st century. And then we've got to, when we do that, it has to do two things. It has to be an introduction and it has to be a callback at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so that was a priority for us as a company to say, okay, let's really look at this character. Let's really bring her back. Let's find the right people to do it. And let's be able to remix concepts. So basically, and you know, and this will come up when we talk about Entropy, the big chaotic menace of Keiko is what was the Lochnar in the heavy metal film that we've basically renamed, right? But the same purpose, the basically feeding off of chaos. And chaos is everything. Chaos exists down to the quantum level. And it's actually, you know, one could argue it's the natural state of the universe. We like to impose order by mechanisms that we create called science and time and math. But in reality, the universe is chaos.
Dude, I'm with you. I'm glad I smoked my pot before we started our discussion because I'm in the right frame of mind. But you are so right about that. And essentially, order and chaos, that is conflict. And that is the essential ingredient in great storytelling. What is the conflict? And really, man, like I said, and I'll likely refer to the conversation I just had with Christopher Priest in our conversation. I'm so glad. And again, Joe, your experience, Priest's experience, and obviously with guys like David who already knew your work and stuff like that, I give heavy metal massive props for hiring the right people that have this experience and knowledge. Along with, am I right, Stephanie Phillips? Didn't she write the
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
One of my favorite people.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people. So
first of all, Stephanie is just such a uniquely talented voice in this industry because, you know, I feel like she really sees characters as archaeology. I feel like she's kind of like an anthropologist, not only because she likes to write these you know, history stories, this historical fiction like The Butcher of Paris, but I think that's the way she approaches characters. She approaches characters in that way. And so, you know, when I was thinking about, okay, who's the right writer? Because listen, we all know it all starts with the story. Comics are a visual medium, 150% true without question. But you got to have a story even to inspire an artist, right? So it all starts with the story. So, you know, I was really thinking, who's the right person for this? And Stephanie and I had worked on a project before. We had a great experience with it. And, you know, one thing that you'll hear a lot of editors say is, you know, you like working with people that you like, right? Just like, hey, like we have a good working relationship, but you're also like a cool human being above and beyond intellect, skill, style. So, you know, I gave her a call and we had a series of conversations. She was, of course, well familiar with the animated film. And, you know, working with David Irwin, publisher and chief creative officer, you know, we came up with this vision, a cosmic vision of the character, because this character being the tip of our spear. So basically, what I tell the people on staff is like, basically, think about Tarna as our Batman. The way that DC Comics treats and respects and positions the Batman is the way we have to position Tarna in this company, right? And so, it was very important that Tarna be distinguishable from Wonder Woman, distinguishable from Red Sonja, distinguishable from characters along this archetypal model, even like Alan Moore and J.H. Williams' Promethea, distinguishable from these characters. That was of high import. And that's something that I feel like the team really accomplished with the Tarna the Last Terrakian series that we've collected a trade paperback. It's something I'm very proud of, and we're proud of it is because the team all gave their A game. And once you read that, this character's not Diana from Themyscira. This character's not Red Sonja. This character is who this character is with her own set of rules.
You honor the movie and the building block set that was in the movie. You're again expanding on this, and Entropy is a classic example of that. Did the ideas for Entropy start editorially with you, David, and the like, or when and how does Priest get in the mix and the development of this character?
No, that's a great question. So basically, what happened was, Matthew Medney, CEO, and I were having a conversation, and I think what happened, because there's just so many things that happened in the discussion. He said, it's time for us to think about what's the yin to Tarna's yang, right? The opposite side. And we're like, okay, so then we're saying we're writing a villain book, right? So let's be clear. We are creating a villain book, not an anti-hero book, which is a term I'm getting a little tired of, not because of what it means, but because of what it doesn't mean, but a lot of people want to assert that it means. So this was a villain book. And I said, okay, when you think about who's going to knock it out the park, my God, what Priest did with Deathstroke.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that was the first time in his own title that they put forth the clear assertion that Deathstroke is a villain. And part of his villainy is the fact that he always gets away with it. That Deathstroke can kill people for money and get away with it in a world with a league named after a concept of justice and a Kryptonian who fights for truth and justice in the American way, and Batman who just doesn't tolerate injustice, right? So that story, and of course, like the saga of, the world's most dysfunctional family, which are the Wilsons, right? That's what it is, right?
I'm hip, dude. Yes.
Straight up. Listen, Deathstroke 1 to 50 is, well, I don't know these days because of everything, but it's an HBO Max, dramedy.
It's a saga. Yeah, absolutely, man.
Straight up, right? It's like supervillain Succession.
I'm hip. Yes.
Right? So I said to Matt, I was like, hey, like, I think Christopher Priest could be great. And he was like, okay, run down Priest for me. I was like, man, Black Panther, Justice League, Deathstroke. He was like, and I told him he was like, that's it. He was like, the guy that could pull off Deathstroke and get Eisner nominated, get him. Because that's the kind of brain that we want here, right? So I reached out to Priest and we started talking, and there were a number of things that happened. Number one, Priest obviously has a long-standing career. He's literally been the trailblazer in various ways in comics. He's been at Marvel. He's been at DC Comics. He knows those worlds, those universes so well. And by operating in those worlds, you have to deal with very clear rules, right? And those rules are opportunities, but from another perspective, they're limitations. So what I was able to say to him is, there's no limits here. Like those guardrails, those invisible shackles that you have when you're working on corporate IP, and we totally understand why, you don't have them here. because number one, this is heavy metal, and number two, Entropy is someone new that we're building from, the ground up. So that was one. And two is that, and he told me this as he was writing, is that writing Entropy for him was like jazz. It was this improvisational process, right? Because if you're writing a Batman book, then you already kind of basically know like this architecture.
The box is established. Absolutely.
Exactly. But when you are literally building the box, it's an entirely different process. So he likened this to jazz. And I love that as an editor because I had read about, and now, you and I are going to go way back. There was an issue of Amazing Heroes, I think, in the way back. It was an interview about Elektra Assassin.
Okay.
Where Bill Sienkiewicz said that when he and Frank Miller did the first issue of Elektra Assassin, they went through multiple drafts because Frank would do a page. He would do a script. Bill would do pages. And then Frank would rip that draft up and do another one to match what Bill did. And Bill would jettison that page and do another one to match Frank's. Like, that is the closest thing I've heard to improvisational creation in comics. And so for me to witness and be a part of that as an editor with Entropy was really exciting.
So pull Montos into that equation. And are there any language barriers? I mean, because again, as I just discussed with Priest, Montos is obviously bringing an A game level that is consistent with the heavy metal vibe. It is such beautifully painted art. It is not afraid to go there, and everyone can read for themselves, both in the preview in Heavy Metal 318 and issue 1 of Entropy, both on sale now. A little quick plug. But so tell me about how did you arrive at Mounts? And give me about the back and forth between them and yourself.
Got you. So, after, I kind of gave Priest a very light direction and said, okay, run from here and see where it goes. And I'll get later into the, the conversations that he and I had, like about the nature of villainy and things like that. But so then it was about the artist. Now, it took 6 months to find an artist for Entropy, for Montos. And what happened was, so Montos is represented by Butsido Agency, which is owned by Luis Arambaru. Luis and I have known each other for a few years. We're good friends. And before I had Priest's first script, but after Priest was on board, Luis had said, hey, here's this artist, Montos, do you think you've got an interesting project for him at Heavy Metal? And at that time I said, love his stuff. Don't have a script for him right now. Don't have anything. So he was like, okay. So then after I had the first 2 scripts from Priest, and I was like, oh, now we know what this is, right? Then again, out of the blue, Luis was like, hey, so, look at this guy, Montos again. What do you think? And no BS, man. I looked at his stuff again, and I sent Priest an email, and the email was titled, "This Guy?" ? And I just attached some of his pages. And Priest's response was, hurry up and sign him up before someone else steals him. And we got him on contract that day. No BS. And Priest and I know that this first dance with him is the last dance, because we know after Entropy he'll be doing.
I hear you, man. Good Lord, Greg Smallwood. I mean, I just discovered him. I became aware of him when he was at Dark Horse doing I believe it was called Dream Thief. And then he did Moon Knight. And right now with King on Human Target, it's like, and I also feel this way about Ilse Chartier, where thankfully Matt Fraction introduced me to her with their November project, and now she's killing it with King on Love Everlasting. And just like I'm sure Montos, I think Ilse is like just that one project away from everyone going, who the hell is this woman, and why are we just being introduced to her when the reality is she's been around for years?
Dude, listen. So let's talk about Greg Smallwood just for a minute.
Please, that'd be great.
I had the pleasure of communicating with him. Really nice guy. His Twitter threads on Human Target are a masterclass, a friggin' masterclass on how to approach story and character from an artist's perspective, references, a mode of thought, the fact that when you're talking about a time, you're talking about a culture, there's all these contexts. I was kind of like, who's this guy? Matthew Weiner, the creator of Mad Men? Like the level of thinking was just blowing my mind. And your point about him and Elsa and that they both work with King, I think speaks to the point that, and I've never read a Tom King script, although I would love to, hint, hint, is that, you know what I'm saying? I'm not subtle about my
hands. Hey, man. That'd be great to see him in heavy metal. Continue.
Dude, listen, his scripts must be very inviting to artistic vision because artists are able to they're able to swing higher, man, with him, right? And so that's the thing that I think, is happening with Priest and Montos is that, the opportunity when you read a Priest script, first of all, you've got to read it like twice, right? At least you've got to read it because it's a lot. And then you go back, but in there are the opportunities. And, as an editor, it's interesting when you talk about, certain corporations, an editorial policy is don't let the talent talk to one another. Like keep everyone in separate rooms. I don't know why that is, but I've had creators tell me that. Not that way here, man. I'm like, once we got the team, it's like introductions. Y'all could dance without me. Y'all could plan to go, shopping. You could be planning my birthday party or whatever the hell. I don't care. There are conversations I don't need to be a part of. I just want you two to bond. And so, Priest would get, Montos's pages and he would just be blown away. And then what happens is trust, right? Then you're like, oh, I can trust this person. Oh man, how far can I push them? Because Priest's diabolical. It's like, what can I come up with to try to break his brain, right? All that stuff. Sure. And they would keep matching up. It was totally the Frank Miller, Bill Sienkiewicz, Electro Assassin thing, dude. So yeah. So once we got him, this thing really started to sing.
That's beautiful, man. And truly, from the preview from Heavy Metal 318 and having read the first issue, no, these guys are absolutely clicking. And again, it brings that strong heavy metal vibe that you want from a heavy metal related magazine or comic. And I think that's great. So let's get into what you said about you and Priest discussing the idea of villainy. Tell me your thoughts on that.
So, and you've heard this so many times and it's true, right? A hero is only as good as their villain, right? I was literally having a conversation with my next door neighbor about 2 weeks ago, and he said something to me. No one ever said it before, but when he said it, blinders were pulled from my eyes. He said, and I'm not saying this is my opinion, Warner Brothers. I'm telling you what a next door neighbor said to me, and it made me think. He said, they'll get Superman right when they get Luthor right. And I was like, whoa. Right? Like, I'd never heard anyone say that before, that they've never said it the villain in. They've always said it the hero out. Like, you got to get Kal-El right, then you can work outward. But someone's like, if you get Luthor right, you'll understand what Superman must be as an opposite to that, right? And then of course, when you talk about Luthor stories, you've got to talk about the Brian Azzarello, Lee Bermejo graphic novel Luthor, which basically made
Man of Steel.
Which makes Luthor the hero from his perspective, and it's compelling, right?
100%, man.
So when we're talking about villainy and the responsibility of building amazing villains, and Tarna's iconic. So whatever we build for her must be formidable conceptually and in execution, right? We're having a real conversation about how do you create an enemy?
Indeed.
Right? And we only have to look at our world to have some examples of different possibilities. One of my 10 favorite films in life, and God bless my wife, she has not gotten sick of me watching this, is the Adam McKay film Vice about Dick Cheney.
About Dick Cheney. Sure, I love that movie.
I could watch Vice 150 times because it's such a brilliant way. And of course, the whole thing, the actors, the production design, everything, the way they approach Dick and Lynn Cheney as characters is really compelling. They are who they are, whatever you think,
Of
good or
course.
bad, but compelling human beings.
Human
Yeah.
beings. Yes, sir.
So you have to create the compelling character. The journey has to be compelling and believable and relatable. Another one of the great examples to me is Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender's Magneto. And I
Yes.
guess I'll say
Yes.
Bryan Singer. Basically, the three of them basically
I'm hip.
created this Magneto.
Yes.
So that was it. It was okay. How do you build a villain? And because we're heavy metal, we can do it naturalistically. So the core question of what happens when you take a flawed person and you give them ultimate power, really, where is that going? Now, we're a society hardwired on an MCU diet that basically tells us that core morality is going to win out over a myriad of other human characteristics. And that's just not so.
No, you're
that's
right.
just that's not the likely ending. That's not the likely journey, right? The likely journey is in the other direction. So,
Absolutely.
okay, so knowing that, how do we do something? How do we take on this conceit of Breaking Bad meets Green Lantern? Because when you're talking about villain stories, one of the villain stories of 21st century entertainment must be Breaking Bad
100%.
and Walter White. Must be.
100%.
And so that was something that we were like, okay, when you're talking about North Stars, that is part of the Mount Rushmore, yes?
Yes.
And then you're getting into where can we surprise people? And what will hopefully happen, the thing about the Heavy Metal 318 prelude story is that looks at things from like the celestial point of view, like 100,000 light years up, and it introduces you to the structure of universes.
I'm hip. Yes.
And we're trying to relate and the birth of the first Crusader of Keiko, because Entropy is the 11th, yeah?
Yes.
So, but Entropy is actually a pretty intimate story about a person uncreated and recreated and figuring out who they are. And when people get to Entropy 5, I feel confident they're going to go right back to 1 and start the whole journey again, because it's going to have this usual suspects effect, right?
I'm
Where
hip.
basically it's like,
Great.
right? There's been things we've kind of been telling you, but you weren't able to totally see them because you're moving in linear time. We are not.
Interesting.
Right?
Wow.
Right? From a storytelling point of view and in quantum physics and whatever, past, present, and future are one and the same. Yeah. So, and Entropy is going to learn about the nature of time. And
Wow.
so that's the whole thing. This is going to be a journey. And those are the stories we want, man.
100%, Joe.
If we could see it coming, well, why am I wasting my time here?
So true, Joe. Absolutely.
Right?
And further too, again, you've got this great opportunity of a blank slate that,
Yes.
as we said earlier about Batman and the box already being established and stuff, you can do anything. And Priest even pointed out, like you did, the Green Lantern illusions, the Galactus Silver Surfer illusions.
Yes.
Christ, that beautiful first issue cover that Montos did. Very Adam Warlock. I mean, and also the whole Christ thing, but very Adam Warlock.
Very Adam Warlock, Starlin, very messianic. And that's the intention, right? Because, you know as well as I do, listen, any given Wednesday, there's like 200 new comic books out, right? How are you going to grab somebody's attention? It's with the cover. So we had to make the cover something that was like beautiful and haunting and take something iconic and just twist it, right? And so, making a character like Entropy messianic, because in the story, we're dealing with the idea of death and rebirth, right? We're even dealing with it quite visually, like coming out of the embryonic fluid and all. And so when we were thinking about artists, someone who came to mind was Bjorn Berens, amazing illustrator doing covers for like King Spawn. And so, we were thrilled that Bjorn, represented by Scott's Collectibles, came on board and just nailed that first cover, man. And we were like, that's an image that's going to work for the next 20 years. That's
real,
what you want, right? When
Yeah.
you start thinking about iconic images, it was the same way we thought about the Tarna covers by Christian Ward. Like, these 6 covers have to basically tell you who this character is for the next 20 years. And that's what, we've accomplished with that first cover. We hope. We'll find out 20 years from now.
I'm hip. No, I'm hip. So the first story arc, 5 issues, 6 issues? What are we looking at?
Yes, the first story arc is 5 issues, and it ends in a place where, without giving it away, the relationship between Entropy and Keiko is now reframed, because one of the two parties has a better understanding of their relationship with the other. What's going to come next? To be determined, right?
Okay.
There is a plan, but again, we want people to really care about this character first and connect with the character, and then we'll look into the further exploration. Because listen, the conflict between Entropy and Tarn is inevitable, and what is also going to be inevitable is it's not going to happen the way you think it's going to happen, the way you've been hardwired to expect something like that to happen.
Exciting. That is so great to hear, Joe. And again, you've got the experience. Priest has the experience.
Yep.
I'm really glad to hear that, and I'm really glad again that Heavy Metal is hiring, in my opinion, the right people to make some of this shit happen. So
thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. I know the clock is running, and I'm not saying goodbye yet. But mentioning Milestone, I'm talking to Dennis Cowan tomorrow.
Oh man,
about and eventually Reggie as well, Hudlin.
Well, Dennis is one of my first mentors in this business.
So yeah, tell me about your association with Milestone, if you don't mind. Because again, I knew you mostly in your main DC years, but yeah, tell me about your Milestone period.
Yeah, so listen, it wouldn't be hyperbole to say that Milestone basically gave me purpose, because I was a kid of the 70s and a teenager of the 80s. Being a Black geek at those times was like death to my social life. It was death. Like, I had a friend tell me in high school, like, Joe, like, you're not gonna get any sex if you keep talking about these comic books, right?
That was the white guy problem as well, but I totally hear you. Continue,
dude. So I had 2 mentors in high school. I was like, one taught me how to dress, and one taught me how to talk to girls, right? So I had all this geek knowledge. I didn't necessarily know where I was going to go. I told you I wanted to be John Byrne or George Perez.
Yes.
But I didn't have that skill. I can draw from observation, but I can't draw from imagination.
Interesting.
That's
very
not
interesting,
me,
Joe.
right?
God, I'd love to see a sketch from you sometime. That's really
okay.
Cool,
well, I've got to, maybe I'll do I got to do a live model thing or something like that. But yeah, like I said, I went to art school, so listen.
We'll
give me charcoals, give me a pen and pencil, give me watercolor. I could do a few things, but drawing from imagination, that is a very special skill, and it's a skill that comes through passion and constant activity. So these comic book artists, right? Colleagues, friends, people I don't know, they're like an amazing blessing. Like, you see my bookshelf, you see Barry Windsor Smith Monsters there. That's the pinnacle. Barry Windsor Smith's Monsters is the flipping pinnacle, right, of art and graphic novels as far as I'm concerned. So, so I didn't know after college. I wasn't sure where I was going. And a friend of mine told me he was interning at this, this black owned comic book publisher named Milestone. He was like, yeah. He was like, hey, I'm working there as an intern, so it's free. He was like, you should come aboard. I was like, I'm not working for free, dude. I'm like, you crazy? What am I going to tell my mom that? You crazy?
Good luck. Exactly.
You hear what I'm saying?
I do.
Then, as fate would have it, I found myself in between jobs, and I went to this newsstand, and I saw an Icon comic. It changed my life. Like, I saw that comic. I'd never seen a comic that the cover validated me so like that. And I looked at it and I was like, the people making Icon are going to change the world. I want to be with them. I want to be with the people who are making Icon.
I'm with
you. And so I had to have the talk with my mom and convince her that I could do this and this would be good. And she was like, okay. My mom was always very supportive. She was like, okay, if you believe in it, you want to do it, do it. So I applied for the internship. I did this interview. I walked in there with a chip on each shoulder because I've been reading comics since I was in the 2nd grade. My dad was a big fan of Deathlock and Jonah Hex and Scalp Hunter.
Hey, awesome. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my dad was into the offbeat stuff, not the superheroes. He loved Sergeant Rock. He might have dabbled with Commandy, the last boy on Earth. And so I blew the interview to hell, I blew it to hell, right? And my friend, Jason Scott Jones, who's now a producer in TV, he stuck up for me because Dwayne McDuffie, I met Dwayne McDuffie, who would go on to be like one of the most important people in my life, in my career. He was like, hey, I don't know if this guy is the right guy for our little family operation here. And Jason stuck up for me. He's like, I'll give him a shot. He's a good guy.
Wow.
Right? So I started as an intern at Milestone. It was 3 months. I did things that were fun. I did things that were boring as hell. But I saw how the books were made creatively. I saw the business infrastructure. And I saw 4 black men running this company.
Yes.
And I was like, holy crap. Like, I'm not strange. Like, this is possible. Like, this is what my life has prepared me for. So after 3 months, I walked into the president's office. I said, hey, I really love working here. Y'all have been great to me, but I got to go hit the pavement and find a job. And I went to lunch and I came back and he offered me a part-time job.
Oh, that's great.
And that was how my career in Milestone began. And I started in the business side, but then I moved over to editorial. I mean, that's a whole other podcast. But
okay.
Dwayne, yeah, seriously, we had to do
Joe, it's a given that we're going to talk again and get more into this stuff. And by all means, but no, that is great to hear. Finish your thought, please.
Yeah, so Dwayne showed me what being an editor was. I didn't know and I didn't care. I grew up reading, Byrne and Claremont X-Men. So it was like, who wrote this? Who drew it? Who inked it? Who colored it? Editor? I don't care what that is.
And that was Len Wein, obviously, right? That was editing that.
Yeah, I think so.
All
right?
There you go. Yep.
But Dwayne showed me what editing was, and that's when I understood that was going to be my vocation in comics. So Dwayne was my first editorial mentor, and then I was blessed enough that my second one was Denny O'Neil.
Oh, that's, you see, yeah, man, the two masters, and yeah, and in
what I'm saying?
It hurts me that they're no longer with us.
Yeah,
especially, I mean, God bless Denny, man, but again, he was in his 80s, and really, the amount of physical health and also the car accident and the stuff with his wife. I mean, just heartbreaking, and I'm so glad I had the opportunity to talk to them. Dwayne, thank God I had one word balloon with him. But as you and I met at San Diego, I had a few encounters with Dwayne at San Diego, and what a wonder! I mean, you knew him much better than I could even imagine. But what a great, gentle man, and I'm so glad that we at least had one conversation on the record before he passed. And it is still a tragic loss, and it is wonderful that Milestone is back, and
absolutely,
that Warner's recognizes the value of these characters, of this whole structure. And again, I told you, I'm talking to Dennis tomorrow. I'll talk to Reggie in a couple weeks. I'm very excited because
that's awesome. Well, please tell them both I said hi.
I absolutely will, 100%, man. You can count on it.
To loop it back, Christopher Priest was one of the co-founders of Milestone, right? Yes. So, in a very real way, I am here because of Priest, in a very real and existential way. And so, our paths together, start at Milestone, go to Batman the Hill at DC Comics, go to Lion Forge and building Catalyst Prime,
Yes.
and now leading to Entropy. So that's allowed us time to build a really great friendship and working relationship. And it's allowed me to be a good enough editor that I can edit Christopher Priest. So, because you don't get that when you fall off the turnip truck. That you need a little time for. So I'm there now.
Well, but I'm so glad, much like Quesada, who started off, writing for Priest when he was an editor, and then was able to return the favor during the Marvel Knights era and give him the Black Panther opportunities. Same thing with you, man. I mean, now again, you're in a great position in heavy metal, and you can call on Priest because truly, man. And again, you're a couple years younger than me. Priest is a couple years older than me. My big bugaboo is ageism, and especially as a broadcaster.
Yes, Lord.
So yeah, man, and it's like really, this is where, and I agree with a lot of what Bill Maher says, but especially this. It seems like ageism is the last vestige of some sort of prejudice against. Well, you're too old and you can't relate to this crowd. Bullshit,
Dude,
hard.
It's crazy. One of the things about the comic book industry is that because we love comics it's a very hard pill for us to swallow that the comic book business is just like every other business, from music to orange juice to fashion, right?
100%, man.
With its virtues and its prejudices. So I have encountered that, right?
I believe it, Joe.
And, at the end of the day, the best statement is the work that you do, right? I can say whatever and you can say whatever, right? But wherever I've gone in my career, I've always endeavored to bring good people together and leave something positive. And right now, I'm on my 3rd year of heavy metal, and you never could have told the 13-year-old kid in High School of Art and Design who was shown Ranks Rocks that he would one day be kind of like the executive editor of this legendary magazine. And so what we've been able to do here, it's been an honor to be a part of it, and just really being able to knock things into overdrive with Entropy. That's the statement. That's the statement against ageism. That's the statement against any kind of prejudice. It's like, it's the unquestionable quality, and it's the commitment to contribute good stories to this industry and to this medium.
And also now too, other publishers have emerged, and you well know that the pinnacle for decades was DC or Marvel, and my career's set now. I'm at the top of the mountain, and in the last 20 or 25 years, we've gotten these other publishers that come in and go, that's fine, superheroes, wonderful, whatever. We're telling different genres, and we're smart enough to hire the people that know how the basics of storytelling, the basics of editorial, and they can bring their experience to our platform, and we can produce great comics. And forgive me, Joe, I always say this to my creative guests. I feel a kinship with all of you because I went through the same thing with broadcasting, and I am 2 years out of my last broadcasting job. Goodbye, broadcasting. Now, and I'm doing the content I've always wanted to do on my terms, and I've got a platform and thankfully a good audience that supports what I do, and I'm sure you feel the same way.
No, definitely. No, this industry is very resilient, and so are its people. And the fact of the matter is, comic books and sequential art can do things that no other medium can do. And now what everyone can see, whether they understand it or not, is that, like, we were always the cool kids, right? The Marvel Cinematic Universe exists because of a legacy of work that started in 1939 with a company named Timely. Yeah. So we were always the cool kids, right? The spark of what Denny O'Neil called amazing imagination with unlimited budget. We have an unlimited special effects budget here.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
And Entropy speaks to that. My God, if they try to make the Entropy film, it's going to cost them $150 million.
150, absolutely.
Not that I would be against Taika Waititi doing it. Hint, hint.
We're for it. Absolutely, man.
But so we're capable of amazing things here. So to be able to keep doing it is great, and it's an honor, and it's amazing. As my wife reminded me once when I was having a bad day, she was like, "You have the coolest job in the world," and I was like, "Damn it, she's right again." She's right.
Well, again, and I, really, I would love to get more into talking about Lion Forge and some of the other things that you've established post DC, but also going back and talking about DC and milestone stuff in a future conversation.
Definitely.
I am watching the clock carefully, though.
I know you are. I appreciate it.
I'm happy to wrap up here and remind everybody.
5 more minutes. We can go.
Well, okay. I mean, all right. Let's see, because I was ready. I really was ready for a second. Well, again,
one more.
Yeah. Speaking to again the opportunities now that heavy metal has, Priest did mention that you are working on a couple other projects, and I don't know how much you can reveal or can't, but I'll give you that opportunity because I didn't get into it in detail with Chris.
Right. So he and I are working on, well, two things. Number one, we're working on bringing his creator-owned comic Zero to film.
Yes.
Zero is going to be a film franchise, which is going to be produced by Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent.
Yes, he mentioned that part.
G-Unit Film and Entertainment, which is behind the amazing Power franchise on Stars. And I mean, that franchise is basically the language of comics, right? Like we take one thing and we make all these spin-offs, right? So he understands that kind of world building. And we're working with Erica Alexander and her partner Ben Arnon, Color Farm Media. Erica Alexander is, of course, a well-known actress, producer, activist, going back to Living Single. She was on Black Lightning, Wu-Tang, An American Saga on Hulu, Get Out. Erica's a great human being. She's fire, man. She's fire personified. And so Zero was this amazing comic that DC published in the late 90s. And the conceit of it was amazing. And when Eric and I started talking about what would be a great comic to bring into this world that is now truly ready for Black visionary ideas, I looked at Zero. I was like, that's the one. And so we're all working together with my production company, Illuminous, to bring Zero to the big screen. And then the second thing, I cannot talk about it right now, but Priest and I are working on what we'll call another world building project with an organization that I will call a favored publisher by Diamond. And we'll leave it at that. And hopefully it'll be announced by New York Comic-Con. But we're really excited. And we get to do these things. It's like dancing in between raindrops because he's doing a bunch of things and I'm doing a bunch of things. But we get to have fun doing these other things. So, yeah.
Hey, man, two incredibly creative and talented people that I'm always appreciative of your output. And I'm glad that you're finding these other places to collaborate. That is so great to hear about Zero. And I'm so glad that you gave us that much more information about it. And also, by the way, mentioning Black Lightning, I really felt like had Black Panther not existed, Black Lightning would have gotten more love and attention because from day one of that CW series, I'm like, these guys get it. And this is why Jefferson Pierce is an amazing character. And to present a Dark Knight Returns vibe with Jeff Pierce, it's like, this is incredible, especially as someone who grew up on the original run back in the day.
Oh, yes. Yes. You're talking about Tony Isabella. Yeah, Trevor Von Eden. The show, and at the core of the show was a story of family.
Yes.
And that's what's beautiful. Like the Black family that's intact and not fragmented. Yeah. And the legacy of heroism from, Jeff to the daughters. Like these are the beautiful themes that we need to explore more. And so that's part of the beauty of it. And yeah, so I'm glad you dug that show.
Well, and I'll give you another brief because I know we're going to wrap up.
Okay.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and I'm so glad learning later that Ebony and Jet were reflecting it while it was happening. Hey, guess what? Here's a strong father and son black relationship that is not the saddest, hood story you could come with. Forgive me.
Listen, 100.
Beautiful. It was beautiful, and I'm saying that as a middle-aged white guy, man.
No, this is the fact. Like, and listen, honestly, and I will put on the boxing gloves and go toe to toe with anyone for this. Star Trek Deep Space Nine is the best Star Trek show.
Feel the same way, man.
It's just facts. And I'm Star Trek from the original series to now, to Discovery, to Strange New Worlds.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful and vast tapestry, but what Ronald D. Moore and these people did with DS9 and the Dominion War and digging into things.
Yep.
Unparalleled in any other Star Trek series. Unparalleled.
Oh, man. Well, Joe, this is all grist for the mill for the next conversation. We'll wrap up here.
Exactly.
We will remind everyone again, Entropy 1 is out, but you really owe it to yourself as well to get that Heavy Metal 318. I think it's 318.
Yes, it is.
Okay, they're both on sale now, and it really does give you the beginnings of what sounds like an incredible story. And it's always important to not only present a great villain, but understand their reason for being. And even though they can still be a villain, you get a bigger connection when you understand the human side of them. So this is all really exciting, man.
Hey, listen, thank you so much for having me. This is great. I look forward to the next conversation.
Well, you can count on both Star Trek and boxing figuring into the
There you go. That's what's up.
I spent 16 years covering boxing, man, from the late 80s to the mid-aughts, the mid-2000s. And I'm still a massive fan. But we'll save that for another day. So, Joe, truly, I'm just thrilled that finally we connect on this level.
We've been circling and circling, but I'm glad our schedules aligned, and it's really been great talking with you, John. Thank you.
Likewise, man, and thanks everybody for watching. All right, I'm hitting end, and it'll end, but we'll still be talking.
All right. That was cool. That was fun,
dude. A pleasure. Here, I'll bring Kat back in. But yeah,
all right.
No, this is exactly what I was hoping for, and I knew it would happen again, even just based on our brief moments that we've seen each other and stuff over the years. So,
yeah.
So there's Kat.
Okay.
Yeah, this is great, buddy. I know you got to run.
But are you going to be at New York Comic-Con?
50-50. I'm not sure, man. Okay. God damn it. I love seeing everybody, but that show just bugs the shit out of me,
dude.
And you gotta take, especially as a fat old man, you gotta take the whole goddamn lap the first day to get in. And it's like, motherfucker, and forgive me, Kat and Joe, but it's like, I'm already tired. I'm just walking in the goddamn front door. You assholes. I hate you.
Dude, so, I hear you. Well, you got to let me know, because if that happens, we got to have coffee or something, man.
Oh, that'd be great, Joe. And truly, I have so many New York friends, and I've always said to the Marvel people as well, because they're like, hey, you can come up to the offices. I'm like, well, I'm not going to do it during the con. So I got to, regardless, budget time. And I've even got friends I can stay with and stuff. So it really is just the plane ticket. But just budget time where I could just come in and hang out with you and truly so many other New York friends. So it'd be wonderful. Absolutely, man.
Dude, that would be great. All right, so I'm going to head out. But we will be talking again. And, John, thank you so much.
Dude, a genuine pleasure. I can't thank you enough.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, we'll talk soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And Kat, thank you again. These were amazing.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much. I appreciate you doing both interviews.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'll chop off the bits that, where it was kind of stalling at the beginning with Chris, but even this ending with Joe and stuff. And no, it'll be clean. And yeah, I'll put out the audios, this starting this weekend, and probably one of them I'll put over the weekend, probably Joe, and I'll probably save Chris for a Monday, just because it's, oh wow, Chris Priest, let's hear from him.
Yeah, totally. That sounds good to me for sure.
Cool. Awesome. And yeah, man, you know how to contact me. So any other books and other creators, just give me the chance to kind of look it over first. But more likely than not, I'm happy to set up more shit in the future.
Oh, I love that. I appreciate that.
Of course. Now, you guys have been great to me, and I appreciate the attention and the trust that hopefully you're going to get a decent interview out of me and not something half-assed.
Of course. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Definitely.
All right, buddy. Be well, and I'll send you the links when they're up.
Okay, awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Have a great weekend, Kath. Thank you.
You too. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.